everybody, it's Joe Roberts of 1WineDude.com. Sitting in front of my daughter's easel today, not to draw dinosaurs for you like she would, but I'm going to graph jam 1WineDude because I want to explain why the concept we have in the wine media of separating wine bloggers on one hand from wine consumers on the other is almost certainly completely artificial. Now, I'm not so good at this, so bear with me, okay? But what I want to do is I want to draw you a bell curve, like standard distribution, okay? The stats people out there will know what this is. The reason I'm drawing the bell curve is that it's typically used to plot consumption. Consumption, in this case, of maybe blogging services, wine consumption, or blogging about wine consumption in this case. Am I sure that the data would plot out this way, in the way I'm going to describe to you in a minute or two? No, I'm not 100% sure. However, because so much data about human consumption of services plots this way, it's a pretty safe bet to use a bell curve to show this kind of distribution. We may be wrong, depending on how you plotted it. The mean may be further this way, further that way. The tail may be a little longer here, a little longer there. Doesn't matter. The point is that most of the data is going to fall into a very big subset in the middle. Okay? Again, not guaranteed, but probably a safe bet for today's purposes. Now, imagine this bell curve is the population of wine blogs. People who are blogging about whatever about wine, sharing it with their friends, etc. Now, some of the wine media, I should say, loves to complain about a certain number of bloggers who are only in it to get free crap. And don't actually say, oh, they don't really talk to consumers, they're only in it for free stuff, they're not very good, etc. Well, that percentage, we'll call the douchebags, the DBs. It's almost certainly tiny. Okay? If it weren't, we wouldn't have a proliferation of the vast majority of those bloggers doing something else. They fit in here, and I'll explain that in a minute. On the other hand, we like to say, who are the influencers? Who are really moving cases of wine, really talking to consumers? I'll get to that in a second. You know, really shaking things up. It's probably a similar percentage, like 1.5%, 2%. I don't know if what we'll call them, maybe the pros. But those are folks over here who are taking the job very seriously, just about as seriously as anybody who works for traditional media is taking it. Maybe even more so in some cases. They're trying to make a living maybe at it, or they're constantly trying to get better. Now, so far we've only covered a couple percent of the total population of maybe hundreds of thousands of people, right, talking about wine online. There will be some percentage here who have douchebaggy tendencies, and we might view them kind of going down this path towards douchebagginess. Sorry for all the douchebaggy references, but you get the point. Similarly, we probably have another percent over here. It's going to be something in the 10 or 20 range, probably less. They're aspirational. They want to get better. They want to get in line behind these people who are making a difference. This is probably where you get a lot of the Wine Blogger Conference attendees. They want to do a little bit more than just share. They want to make some kind of impact in a positive way. They want to teach people about wine. They see the folks over here and they say, that inspires me. I want to be like that. Which leads something like 70 some odd percent, maybe a little more, maybe a little bit less, squarely in the middle. Who are these people? They blog. They're wine bloggers, but guess what? They're wine consumers. There's no difference. They buy wine. These people get a lot of samples. Maybe some of these people, who knows? These people don't. They go out and they buy it themselves. They spend the money. They then talk about it. Yes, they talk about it to each other, but everybody else in that group is also buying wine. Are they talking to consumers? Well, which consumers do you mean? Do you mean fine wine consumers? Or do you mean the folks who at Costco, their husband or wife calls and says, get some wine. So in between peanut butter and bulk toilet paper, they grab a big magnum of Yellowtail Shiraz or Chardonnay or White Zin and then keep going. Because no, we're not talking to those people generally. We're not talking to those people generally in this community. Because those people don't care. They'll never care. They may someday care, but only if they themselves come to the table with wine one day and say, wait a minute, there's something more to this. This is awesome. I want to learn more. Very few people in the history of wine media has ever elevated any of those people kind of up the consumption pyramid from that to then buying $25, $35 bottles of wine. I think the last person to do it was Gary Vaynerchuk. I mean, otherwise those people are coming one by one on their own time, on their own terms. And it's a slow process. Are these people talking to them? No. But what wine media is talking to them? I mean, God, Wine Spectator is not talking to those people. Wine Enthusiast is not really talking to those people. They're talking to these same people. This is just a subset of that larger group. There are some people, if you then drew another curve on top of this to show all fine wine consumption in the U.S., well, what you'd find is this is a subset of that and probably mirrors it pretty closely. But there's a lot of folks, probably mostly baby boomers, they're not blogging. To them, that's not how they share. Folks who trend younger, that's how they share. They blog, they tweet, they go on Facebook, they talk about this stuff. That's this group. You don't want to discourage them. If we're talking about, these folks, they don't speak to consumers, the hell they don't. They speak to one another, and they're spending an inordinate percentage of their income, by the way, on fine wine. Why on earth would we discourage these people from blogging? It makes no sense. No, they're not all going to be Gerald Asher. They're not going to be writing amazing stuff. They're not going to be fantastic photographers like Charles O'Rear. So what? The point is that they're sharing. They're not all pros. Big friggin' deal. They're still talking to one another. They're not talking to hundreds and hundreds of people at a time. No, but it's not that they don't matter. The point is that they're sharing. It's good for wine. It's good for the wine business. These people are encouraging each other to buy wine, to keep up with that passion, not give it up in favor of something else. So if you're complaining these people aren't good enough, your finger is not on the pulse, people. You are not seeing the wine business and consumers for what they really are. So this notion of wine consumers and wine bloggers being different, completely artificial. Now, hopefully, I've convinced you at least a little bit of that, or to look at it in a slightly different way. I really hope that people can chime in with data that might support this, or that we can find some data that might support this kind of distribution. But I think those who know blogging in other spheres and know wine will probably see this as pretty self-evident, actually. I don't want to sound glib, but this is not rocket science, and we're not making huge stretches here. We're talking about normal distributions. We're talking about the way blogging works in just about any other sphere. Wine is not going to be different. Wine is not so magical that it shouldn't follow those types of patterns. All right, everybody. Now I have to erase this so my daughter can get back to drawing dinosaurs. Until next time. Cheers.